Hi everyone, welcome to Taste the Hustle. I'm your host, Jorge Abreu. Super excited. My first guest today is going to be the super talented fashion photographer and director, Kal Trevor. I had an amazing time. We got into how he got into the fashion game, what he has going on now. Um, I really hope you guys find it as interesting as I did. I have many more interviews coming up. This pandemic has set me up to, you know, figure things out at home. So, as I was bored, as we were all, I just decided to call a whole bunch of friends and start interviewing them. So, I really hope you guys enjoy the ride as I did. And even if you didn't, please subscribe, hit the bell notification. I'm going to be dropping episodes every Friday, and you're not going to want to miss it. So, no further ado, let's get into it. Here we go.
I would say that my ultimate goal is to be a well-known and respected and well-paid fashion film director in the high-end market, like doing commercial spots for Louis or Gucci or any of the top fashion houses that you might have heard of.
Here, little one, listen close. Beware of men who hide in shadows. Too young to understand such words from a man. Never forgot, never forget. Blood is blood, reminded time again. Not just blood, he says, I'm you. Fuck 'em, random, leave 'em, run away. Fuck 'em, random, leave 'em, there's no shame. Fuck 'em, random, leave 'em, lame. Fuck 'em, random, leave 'em.
But I'm definitely there's a lot more depth there. Not that there's not depth in fashion, but there's just a lot more depth to my interests. But I would say that fashion definitely is probably like a primary focus for me. It's probably one of my favorite things to do for sure.
Like, how did you get started with that? Because I've seen some of your stuff on your Instagram, and like, it's pretty cool. And like, looks like you've been doing it for a couple of years now.
So I always tell people to, or I don't even want to say people like I have like large speeches, but I try to tell my little brother and a couple of the other younger people that I try to like mentor or talk to just in general about life, that you really don't ever have to have it completely figured out at the time. You really just have to know that you like something enough to go through some kind of hardship in dealing with it, and then just find something to do in that lane. So anyway, all that to say, I made it to fashion film work by starting out as a stylist. Actually, prior to becoming a stylist, I was just, I guess, somebody who was just well dressed. And people just kept asking me, yo, man, are you a stylist? And I'd be like, no, I'm not. But thank you. And eventually I was like, well, why can't you be a stylist and work your day job? Like, what would be the harm in that? And if people are asking you about it, then it must be like an opportunity for money. So I didn't know exactly what to do in it, but I ended up through a friend who's a music artist. She had a stylist, and I started like actually prior to her, I was working by myself, just calling friends over. The closest things that I could find to models, you know what I'm saying, and maybe people who potentially were models or did model, but certainly people who came more because I was their friend than it was, I was a talented photographer at the time. and I would just put them in the best styles or clothes that I had access to, and I would take pictures of them on like an Amazon backdrop in the attic of the place that I was staying at. And I look back at those pictures sometimes and I laugh, but that's basically how I got started. And I started becoming like more obsessed with how the images came out that I was taking of my stylings, that it kind of switched over from making the clothes look good to making the image look good. And then I bought a camera, and then I bought a light set, and all Amazon grade shit. But I just started building, from there. And it wasn't long before I started doing that that one of my best friends from high school, who's still my business partner to this day, she graduated from an art school with a film degree, and she was working in film, and she was liking some of the stuff that I was doing, and she was like, I think it would be extremely dope if you were, a DP for a lot of the things that I do. And I was like, what's a DP? She started explaining some stuff to me, and I was like, listen, I don't know what the hell I said, I barely know what the fuck I'm doing now. I was like, if you want to take the risk, I was like, I'm down. I don't know what that looked like remotely, because at the time, she was in Virginia. In fact, she's still in Virginia. But what was really taking place for the most part was that, and let me back up. She also encouraged me. She was like, does your camera, at that point that we had this conversation, she asked me if my camera had video capabilities. And I was like, yeah, it has video capabilities. But I was like, listen, I'm still taking a couple photography classes. I was like, film is just too big. I was like, I barely, feel like I'm grasping this. And I was like, I feel like I should get much better at this before I even like step into that. And she was like, listen, you got to start somewhere. You're never going to be the best at it. And, it's fine if you're learning two things at once, but you're there. The set is there. The people are there. There's no reason why you shouldn't try to take advantage of both opportunities. And so I actually have my first video, so I'll send that to you. I have my first fashion film ever. And the funny thing is that you're doing a video like this is because I had planned to do kind of like a motivational video like this for other people, like showing them my last fashion film versus the first I ever tried to record with my camera.
Yeah, that'd be great. Like to show something from like where you started to where you are now.
No, yeah, I'll send it to you. But so I said, you know what? I fought her for like a good 60 days, and then finally I got in touch with one of the biggest designers that I still use to this day. He's dressed like some really important people. And when I got to that, I was like, you know what? I got to do this shoot justice. We have to do a video. And I had a guy come in that was a little bit more experienced than me. He kind of worked as my DP. So even though I did film some of it, I will say he filmed most of it, but he just wasn't getting it. And I ended up liking most of the shots that I did, even though I didn't trust myself because I didn't do film. So I was like, you know what? I'll do most of the photos and I'll let this guy do most of the camera work. But he just wasn't good. And ultimately speaking, the video came out terribly. But I learned a lot about video even in that instance. I learned a lot about editing that video, even though it was a terrible edit in retrospect. But yeah, man, I kind of stumbled into film because I had a love, I guess, for clothes and I guess just looking good myself. And people started asking me, was I a stylist? And I was like, no, but apparently I could be. So why not start trying to make money doing something that I clearly would do for free?
Yeah.
So I started doing that, and I developed an obsession with making beautiful images. And that was kind of like nurtured by a friend who really believed in my talents and, pushed me to not just do photography. Not that just doing photography, that there's anything wrong with that, but that she saw something that could come out of film. I guess she saw something cinematic about my photography, and she wanted to push me to do something a little bit more. And I finally took the leap, and I actually fell more in love with film, then I did photography, and that's kind of how I got there. It's not that I still like photography and I still do it, but that is kind of how I got here. And the reason why I tell people, when people ask me how I started, and I start all the way back from just being told that I look like a stylist, because my brother always says stuff like, I don't know what to do, and, I need to figure this out. And I'm like, bro, there's nothing to figure out. I said, the only thing that you figure out about life and your career and all this other shit is that there's nothing to figure out. The only thing you really can do is put one foot in front of the other. You just have to start somewhere, and you have to build off of the next block, because
Exactly. Yeah.
what happens to the next person at each step is going to be different. You could take one step, and next thing you know, you're the biggest Netflix director, or, it could take you several steps, you know what I'm saying? But you just build off of the next step. You do something that you like, you get in it, you figure out what you like most about it, and you'll go that route. I could have started taking photos and never put people in front of my camera at all. I could have just started taking landscape photos, and, now I'm one of the biggest landscape gallery, photographers, and never got into, fashion or people at all. So, I mean, you just got to get in it, and you got to see, where you fit in, and where your ability to do it past the hardships of it. Because no matter how much you like what you do, when you get into the business portion of it, there's going to be some really crummy parts of it that you didn't necessarily think about. And, those days are going to suck, but, you just got to like it enough to work past the sucky shit.
Yeah, that's definitely, you got to go inch by inch, and just every time you do it, you improve a little bit, and you learn something new, and you push on from there.
Yep.
What was your first camera that you got?
My first camera that I got was actually the camera that I still have. Well, I technically I had a different Canon before that, but it was actually a camera that I purchased with somebody. So we were actually sharing it. But it was another Canon. And then I bought for myself a Canon 7D.
Okay, that's a good one.
That's actually the camera that I still have. From almost 7 years ago now, when I started out in this. But I'm probably just gonna keep that camera just because. But as far as equipment goes, first of all, I do need to spend a lot more money on equipment. But I ran into a guy a while back. He actually is the guy who DP'd the short film that I did in September called Space Between. But
Okay.
his reel is amazing. Like, it's amazing. And he's a DP. And his only pieces of equipment, Phil Jackson. The only pieces of equipment that he actually owns is the Blackmagic Pocket, like the one that we used to check shit with at work.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, he's either done it with the Blackmagic Pocket, or the production that he's on has provided him the tools, I guess, that he's needed to get the work done. But there's a lot of people that I feel like are held back at times by what they may have. If you're an engineer or somebody who makes beats, maybe you don't have a keyboard, or you don't have a proper speaker setup, or whatever the case is. But there's people out there like making serious moves with what they have before them. Some way or capacity, they're getting it done. So I just say, listen, if you look at my reel in comparison to my equipment, it doesn't match up. So
No, but that's the key. That's what you need to do. It's like you a lot of people, they, even like friends that we know, they focus a lot on equipment, thinking that the equipment is what's going to get them to where they need to get. Like, they need the latest thing, and they always feel like they need to spend money to get the best quality image.
Right. And it definitely helps. But I would say, and I forgot who said this to me, but somebody said something along the lines of like, if you give a monkey the best power tools, could they build a house? And I guess it would depend on the monkey, but I said probably not. And because the answer is just that, it doesn't matter if you have the best tools if you don't have the sharpest mind. Now, the sharpest mind plus the sharpest tools, now that's a unbeatable combination. But you definitely, especially when you don't have it, at least have to work on just becoming the best at whatever it is you do, which is something I'm still working on with what you have.
Yeah, you got to make, do with what you have. And sometimes people, like, for example, if you watch like the movie The Blair Witch Project, that was recorded on like cassette, like I think it was high 8 or something like that. And the quality wasn't even that great, but they went with that look. They incorporated it, into what they were doing. And then they made millions of dollars. It's like, it's not really, they could have gotten the latest camera and then put effects to make it look, found footage. But instead they used, low quality cameras, which was much more affordable,
Yeah.
So I usually use that as an example. Like, you just can use whatever you have and then create like amazing things with it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Did you take any like school training for like film, photo, anything, video, or you just learned on like as you went?
I have taken about 3 or 4 courses. Most of them, I want to say his name is Sean Downey. Now I want to get his name because I don't want to mess it up, but he's a photographer at Unique University, and he teaches a few classes there. And he's just a really good teacher, honestly. And he's just super nice because I know the class isn't paying him that much. In fact, sometimes I think he's doing it for fun. But even after the class, which is not paid by Unique, like he still lets you ask him questions and like, talk to him and stuff like that. He's really cool. But I took like 3 classes with him, and that's it. Everything else was YouTube University. And as far as film is concerned, I had, well, first of all, I put my first fashion film out in March or April of 2017. That was my first time like picking up a camera to do film. And
You've been in it for like around 3 years then.
For film and photography, I would say end of 2013. But we can just start with 24 because I want to say I probably started like between like June and September of 2013 is when I started getting into photography. Definitely by 2014, I was in as full swing as I could be with that. And then I left my job in 2015, really honestly unsure if I was going to be able to make it. And I got my first job because when you're doing photography at first, you just take any job that people throw at you. I was like taking like all kinds of jobs that I was like, hey, if they're going to pay me to shoot it, like I'll shoot it. I was scared shitless in a few occasions though, because I was like watching tutorials like right before I went to the door. Like I got a job at the mall to do some food photography, which I'm actually still using these shots to this day in my food photography portfolio. But I had never shot food before in my life, and I sat and watched like 3 or 4 hours of tutorials like 2 days in a row before the shoot to try to make myself feel confident about it. And I was like, hey, I said, he's either going to like it or not like it. And I said, what can I do? I said, I really just got to move forward. But I was like afraid that I was going to like ruin my reputation before I even got one or something like that. But I was just like, it is what it is, man. And I just started, working as much as possible. I didn't actually take my next job until out of Ramadan. That was the first time I worked again from that time period. Things had gotten a little slow, a little stagnant. But as far as schooling is concerned, just that. And then, like I said, my business partner went to Full Sail University. And I don't know if this is legal, so I don't know, we'll not say we're friends, but there was a couple times that I did sit in on, like, she screen shared with me while her professor was like lecturing, because a lot of it was online classes and stuff like that. So I did sit through a few lectures, as well as the fact that having somebody who you're business partners with who's currently in film school and is a graduate is a blessing as well, because I was so run and gun with everything, just doing everything like super illegally and just without like cause or concern. And she'd be like, "Oh, do we have a permit for that?" And I'm like, "A permit?" I'm about to permit myself to do what I want. But the fact that film school tries to put a little bit more structure to your film process and also your legality process has been good. But there's a large part of me that is glad that I came up the run and gun, learn it yourself kind of way, because I think there's a certain quality that you're able to add to your work that you probably wouldn't get if you were super by the book on this level of the game. It would just cost you far too much money and time to get some things done. So you just have to see some things by the moment that school would not teach you would be a good thing to do. Oh, shit. So, yeah, that being said, yeah, that was pretty much it for school. YouTube, a couple classes, and like 0.01% full sail university.
So your friend sat in the class and she like live streamed it so that you can.
Full sail, though I do think they do have an actual campus in Arizona, they do online degrees, and I believe the large majority of her classes were online. So this was like a screen share from an online, like, large lecture.
Okay. Yeah. No, but that's amazing. Like, because most people, they don't even get to see a class, or to be able to have a friend to just share you something like that. Some people would be like, "No, I'm paying for this. I can't."
Yeah, it was like maybe 2 or 3 times. I definitely don't feel like I went to Full Sail. You know what I mean?
No, of course, yeah.
But it was cool and it was insightful.
Yeah, you still got a glimpse into it, which is good, because you might have learned something from that video. So you got into it kind of by accident, and you just got into it, started running with it, and then how did you learn the steps? Like, how did you learn to, like, when did you learn that you needed like a makeup artist and like a fashion director on set for the clothing and the look, like somebody who's gonna like visualize the look that you're going for, and they'll bring the fashion into it to match everything? Because like the first time I was on set with you is the first time I've seen somebody have like a person dedicated just for the fashion of the model, what they're going to be wearing that day. I never saw that like in a small production as what we're used to. Usually we're all doing everything.
Right. And I mean, honestly, because I was a stylist and I started out a stylist, 90% of the time before I linked up with the first person that I linked up with that was a stylist, I was doing most of this stuff myself. Very early on in my career, after styling a few things myself, I was introduced, like I mentioned earlier, by a friend who's an artist to her stylist. And she saw my work and she was kind of like, listen, and she was already heavier in the game as a stylist, but she was like, she had a photographer, but I guess they had some kind of a falling out. And she was like, oh, I've been looking for, somebody to partner up with and bring them into the fold, so to speak. She's like, I get a lot of campaigns and stuff, and I want like the same team, like the same photographer, the same makeup artist, because, I want my work to look consistent. And we started working together, and I noticed very early on I want to try not to get too negative though, but very early on, I realized that she was a bit more controlling a person than I was probably going to be able to creatively and comfortably work with, as well as the fact that I noticed that she was somebody who was very diligent and hardworking when she was alone, but she took the opportunity to not get more work done once partnered, but to sit back and kind of get the same amount of work done, even though now you have a partner, which to me didn't really make sense. And to make a long story short, because of that, we fell out. But it was through her that I kind of started learning the scope of things, because remember, I originally started working with her as an assistant stylist when I was styling. And then when I started shooting, it turned into a relationship where she was the main stylist and creative director, and then I was the photographer. And it was kind of through her that I started to gain insight on the fact that there definitely needed to be a person. And, on a larger production, there'd be somebody doing costume design and final last looks or whatever the case is. And it's pretty much the same case, just like more thorough, because in a fashion production, the fashion is everything, for the most part. Yes, the person is there, but the fashion is a great deal of it. So there can't be any wrinkles or crooked, or, when we go to set up again, if the collar was folded up on this side and that, same shit, there just has to be some consistency and some stylization that occurs. And so I realized very early on that when I would do things by myself and I would get back to the editing bay, that I missed something. Oh, her collar was tucked in because I'm paying attention to framing. And I'm also directing her emotions and her face while watching my exposure. And, there's just so many things that are going on when you're doing something by yourself that I try to get a team together as quickly as possible. And if I am not sounding too cliche and repetitive, like, your team is your everything. There's no way that I could produce the level of work that I'm able to produce without strong, smart, creative people working with me on the production. It gives me the opportunity to concentrate like solely on my ideas, or as much as possible. It just lessens the amount of jobs I have. I may be wearing, one or two or three hats, but at least I'm not, wearing five. And I find that the more focused each person is on one task, the better the production does come out at the end of the day. So not only is it not about, the camera you have or even just your own work ethic, it's really about, like, have you been somebody who's been able to network and build a team? And I want to be clear, just like with the situation that I had with that young lady, when you start out in this industry, you are going to go through people. You're going to go through people who promise to be about that life, but they quickly find out that they're not. And I want to say that I don't fault those people, because remember when I said you got to find something that you like enough to go through the hardship? Maybe they found out in that instance that they're not willing to go through whatever the hardship is. But I find that a lot of people have offered to be stylists or makeup artists or be a part of the team in some capacity, and then when it really comes down to it, they didn't really handle the opportunity well. But I will say you're going to have to go through those trials and tribulations, one, so that you know what you want from a teammate and what you do and do not work well with, but also so that you can get to that person. Like, there's no way you'll know if you work well together if you don't ever work with anyone. So, I learned a lot from her, and I also learned what I will and won't deal with from her. And so I don't regret the interaction or the meeting. And ultimately it led me to the group of guys I work with today. Because, maybe if I never met her, I wouldn't have, did whatever things I did, there. Yeah. So networking to meet a good team is definitely key to your success. Just being around people that do the same shit that you do. Paramount.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely know how that is, because, like, I remember when I was doing this short, and it was the first time that I kind of, like, hired a cinematographer to handle like the shooting, and because usually I do everything, like I'm behind the camera, lighting and everything, but this time I wanted to focus on the actors and like just on the story itself. And I was like telling the cinematographer what to do and like the shot that I wanted. And the whole time they were like, yeah, I got the shot, everything is good. And I did the mistake of not um, checking his like the shot that he was getting, because by the time I got all the footage, a lot of it was out of focus and all this stuff. So it's like you definitely got to pick the right people who are going to give you what you want and understand what you want. And it's one of those things where like when you're creating art in collaboration, you really got to trust the person. One, that they're like capable of getting you what you want, and two, that they're understanding the instructions that you're giving them.
You're absolutely right, and I'm going to piggyback off that and say 2 tips I'll give people about things that literally they should try to do while trying, mistakes I made while trying out people. While trying out people, I have given them access to contacts of mine that I made throughout, my time working my way up. And it's, in my opinion, been a mistake to give people, I say if you give somebody access to contacts you just need, make sure there's people who, if something were to happen, wouldn't, damage your, that they're not important contacts of yours.
Yeah.
I would also say to make sure that you do not, I guess it's kind of the same thing, but don't bring in new team members on a very important shoot.
Oh, of course not.
That you've never worked with before. Do it for, a play shoot or a passion project or some way where it could be more of a test module. I made the mistake with a certain person, and I brought them in on a shoot that was like super important to me, and I let them mess it up for all intents and purposes. We'll just say it got messed up, and what I learned afterwards, and even from the people involved, which was kind of embarrassing, was just that don't bring somebody new into the fold before you're sure if they'll work, especially if the particular people that you're working with are important to you and you want to keep your level of professionalism where it's at and not lose any context, because on both occasions, the outcomes could have been worse. Luckily, the people liked me that much that they were willing to work with me again in some cases. In fact, not everybody came out of that. I don't talk to everybody in that scenario. So, and that was money. So I ended up losing a client over letting a certain person into my shoots. Doing a free project with a customer that normally pays me, I ended up not getting any more paid jobs from them because that was such a catastrophe. So, case in point, definitely do a test job so that you can see if someone's a nut job prior to the job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that happened to me. Actually, I've learned from several mistakes. I hired this audio tech to do the sound on set, and I brought some equipment. He said he had equipment, and I'm focusing on the day because you're producing. You got to work with the actors, and you're hoping that the camera guy, he's doing his job and the audio guy is doing his job. And every time I was on set and I looked over at the audio guy, the headphones are like either around his neck or not even near him. And he was always looking at the recorder, and I would tell him like, sound is good. And he would like, yeah, it's good. And he's like looking at it. But like the whole time I'm like dealing with so much in my brain, like that I have to do on that day, that I didn't like, notice that he wasn't really like listening. So by the time I got the audio, and it was like, there was like 2 labs, a boom, and then the camera mic. So we had like 4 audio pieces. when I got them all back, some of them weren't even working. Like some of the labs on the actors wasn't picking up anything because he was just primarily just looking at the recorder and looking at the levels, but he wasn't listening. So like he could have been static, it could have been anything on that level. And like when I got it back, I was so pissed. I was so pissed. I never worked with that guy ever again because I ended up having to pay a sound engineer to fix all that audio from those 4 different sources to get decent audio for just simple scenes that we shot. It was so like a lesson learned, like, you know, and you got to be careful with like when you're doing a job, especially when you're putting a lot of like money behind it, because that was like a very big, like it was like my longest short film to date. So me and my producers, we put a lot of money behind it, but we, you know, we kind of got delusional with the promise of like he wasn't too pricey and he was coming in with a lot of gear.
Right.
And then it ended up like we should have paid more for somebody else, you know, instead of getting like the cheaper thing and then getting crap. So it's like a lesson learned. And also, you know, you got to pay attention to people. You got like, even as a director, you got to learn a little bit of everything so that you know if they're doing their job. Like you could look over and be like, okay, he's doing his job, and you could just continue moving. Because sometimes, even if you don't know everything, you could kind of see if they're doing the right thing or not, if you learn a little bit about that task.
Definitely. I think one of the benefits of having to do everything yourself in the beginning is that when you do start, you know, giving out responsibilities and things of that nature, at least you know the nature of that particular position, so you can actually, you know, empathize with the person, or just, you know, have the ability to know how to direct the person in that position. You know, if you were a DP or a PA or a, you know, whatever it is, you are, sound engineer or whatever, that, you know, having that experience as a director is going to make you that much more of a director for the crew, not just the talent.
The talent, yeah. How do you network? Like, what do you go to like certain events that are directed to like fashion and stuff like that? Do you look these things up and you sign up and you go to them, or do you do it through friends and contacts and you just keep building off of that? Because I know some people pay to go like to network parties and stuff like that, and then other people, it's just people that you know, and it just grows from there.
So I have a friend from high school who's super into fashion. He has a high following. He gets invited to a lot of fashion events. He's invited me. Basically, a lot of my friends in some capacity are involved in the industry, you know, in entertainment or film or music, and in some way it always intersects with fashion. And so I've been able to find myself in places to network without necessarily trying very hard in some instances. But what I will say is that I myself, for somebody who is super, I guess, just bubbly, personable, you know, extroverted, like this is going to be very easy. But I think people should be telling people what they do or who they are in some capacity whenever they meet them. And I also think that, especially if it's in a networking opportunity, that should be the case, no matter how shy you are. I do think that oftentimes I've given up what could have been a lot of money through being shy at networking events or a particular opportunity to network, because not every networking opportunity is going to be, you know, a mixer, you know what I'm saying? But that you should definitely take any opportunity to network that you can in person, because that's just very important. There's a lot of context. I mean, celebrity context. I mean, even, you know, I could have done more networking after we were done with that job when I was at like the Laquan Smith party. And
You mean the hair product shoot that we went for
yeah,
that
and like the
for
fact,
that what was it, Fashion Week?
yeah, that's a perfect example. Being at a fashion show, there was a after party and a pre party. Yeah, so perfect networking opportunity. You're at work. It's like getting paid to network. So in general, like I said, I just think that you should use any and every physical opportunity to network and tell people about yourself in some way. It doesn't need to be overbearing per se, but you know, you can let people know who you are and what you do. The second part is going to be social media. Social media, and these are not necessarily listed in order of importance, but the second component of networking for me would be social media for sure. Why am I yelling so much? All right, yeah, will be social media for sure. For me, I find that just posting your work and consistently being a presence on social media is a way to network, responding to people who, you know, love your work. And it's gotten me jobs. People follow you, you respond to them, you talk to them, and you know, eventually they end up hitting you up for work. The music video that I'm doing this week is for somebody who, I don't know, he followed me on Instagram a while back. He's a music artist. I happen to like some of the music that I heard. I guess he followed me because he liked what I shot. Maybe he planned on using me for something, but that was like at least 3 or 4 years ago. And we barely said a word to each other, but he hit me up just recently to shoot a music video. So all that to say that not only is social media a cool networking tool because it links people who you could have otherwise lost through, you know, new cell phones or whatever the case is, if you change numbers, and it keeps the person in your mind. It keeps you in their mind. You're constant posting or whatever the case is, so that when they do think of somebody for a job, because you're always posting great work, you're at the forefront of the person's mind. And I would say that the third component would be friends and family, I guess. People who already trust you as a person, and certainly people who trust your work, but also even clients who you've just done so good by that they think you're a genuinely nice person and great to work with, but you use these people to your advantage. 90% of some of the jobs that were most lucrative monetarily, or even by prestige in terms of who the client was, have been given to me by, I can say, like 2 or 3 people that I would consider friends, but friends that I'm sure think about me because even that I post so much on IG, and they're like, oh, you know, if somebody hits them up, like, oh man, I've been looking for a such and such, you know, they're sending it to me because they're like, well, he does fashion, well, he does, you know, food photography or whatever the case is. And these are the people, because the people that are calling them to tell them about these problems trust them so much, and they trust me so much. Generally speaking, these are not people I have to woo into working with me. Like 90% of the time, if they end up making the call, one of these close friends or family members, the job is usually already set. I mean, we've talked about rates and things of that nature, but in terms of like them accepting my ability to do the job and all of that, a lot of it is off what they say more than it even is my work.
Yeah. So your friends, like they kind of like refer you, but they're already talking in good light of you, saying how good your work is. So by the time you meet the client, they already want to work with you. So it makes it easier to kind of then from there just move on to creating instead of trying to convince them to hire you.
Absolutely. And even if it's not that they, you know, didn't spend days or weeks or, you know, mention me every now and then, I think that if somebody comes to somebody with that issue, or let's just say we're having lunch and I'm like, this graphic designer is getting on my nerves, and I slam my phone down. I'm like, oh wait, Cal does graphic design. I've used him a million times, like, and I've known him since elementary school. Like, just call him, trust me, he'll do that in 5 seconds, and contacts are exchanged, and et cetera, et cetera. It's more of the job already kind of been booked through the trust of the individual we're dealing with. So for me, networking is going to consist of constantly making your followers aware of what you do and reminding them, constantly reminding and doing trustworthy work by the friends and the family that you see are supporting, and not even supporting in that they're paying you, but even that they're telling people what you do, because that is a big source of support. A great portion of, I wish more friends would tell people about my work, but a great deal of the people that actually do support me have sent a lot of people my way. Whether we end up working together or not, it's super unimportant to me. It just feels good to know that there are people that are actually out there actively thinking about you because you're putting out good work. And that people call about it. So it's like, on one hand, you feel good because you're like, my friends actually care enough to tell people, and two, people are looking at my work, trusting the person, and actually hitting me up. So it's just a matter of social media, your actual friends and people that you already know. You still need to network within them because you don't talk to them every single day. You need to keep them abreast, and then you also need to make the most of physical opportunities to network. When I was in that spot, there was multiple celebrities. We could have exchanged information. They might have told me to get the hell out of their face, but that's what they should be telling me, because I should have been in there doing a little bit more to make myself known. And that's what I mean by taking every opportunity, because I thought about that day, like a few days afterwards, and I've made better of more opportunities because I was so regretful of how shy I was being in that room to myself. So with that being said, I'm just, warning everybody else, whether especially if you're a shy person and you want to be successful, that's one of the things that has nothing to do with film and everything to do with film, because obviously that will permeate every facet of your life because you're going to be in different rooms for different reasons. But in terms of film alone, and I can't see how it would hurt any other aspect, I just think it would benefit you in every way to just making more of physical opportunities to network with people and tell them about what you do.
Yeah. Well, that kind of reminds me of, because you hired me to go shoot that fashion week. What was that product that we were shooting? It was like a hair product.
So Cantu was sponsoring Laquan Smith's fashion show by providing all the hair products for the stylists that were doing hair for the show. So Cantu wanted us to come in and do coverage of the show while spotlighting their product.
Yeah. What was the guy's the designer's name?
Laquan Smith.
Laquan Smith. That reminds me, because when we got there, we were still bringing everything in, and it was very hectic. Everybody was just like, the commotion was starting. Everybody was doing their own thing, and we didn't even know where we were going to set up first. And then I went into the bathroom because I needed to use the bathroom. And like, while I was in there was this guy. He was just like, he was like fixing himself, and like he was in the mirror and we kind of just had like a cordial conversation, like, hi, how you doing? This is going to be a great event, blah, blah, blah. And then when he came out, you pointed out to me that was the guy. Like, that's the guy that was having the show.
It was Laquan Smith that you were talking to?
In the bathroom, and you pointed out, like, dude, you were talking to him in the bathroom. I was like, yeah, like I didn't know who he was because I'm new to the scene, and it looked like he was just getting ready at the same time that I just happened to be in the bathroom.
Right.
So like situations like that, happens, and like if I knew who he was, that could have been a moment to kind of go to network a little bit, like, but things like that happen.
I think that that's even better, because sometimes somebody will be ignoring a guy that they don't know, I'm just saying, talk to any and everybody and let them know what you do, because you don't even know who they are. So let's suppose, because you did start a nice conversation with him, you know, he called you to do his next show or whatever, but you were like, hey, I was talking to that guy. When I said hi to him, I didn't know who the fuck he was. I was just saying hi because that's what I do when I see people. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just saying to just open up, be more open, which includes greeting people and talking to people, because you don't even know. That is a perfect example of making sure you use the most of physical opportunities to tell people what you do and who you are. You know?
Yeah. I saw you did a music video a while back. Did that person contact you to do the music video for them, or was it something that you wanted to do and you contacted them?
Well, I already knew that artist. I'm friends with that particular music artist, but she did let me know that she wanted me to do the music. So it wasn't like a random reach out, but yeah, she did contact me to do that music video. Yep.
And like, did you come up with the concept for the video, or did she have the idea of where she wanted the video to go and she kind of let you then just run with her idea, or was it your idea with her music? Like, how did you guys collaborate on creating that video?
She gave me a preliminary budget amount, and I kind of tried to create within that, you know, for myself. There were some things that ended up not being able to get done, just because sometimes things just don't play out the way that you want them to. But I came up with the treatment myself, and I usually try to come up with the treatment based on, you know, I don't like to be like limited in my thought capacity. So sometimes I won't ask before I start thinking about it, but sometimes I hate to get dead set on a concept that is completely out of monetary scope of the person's budget. So sometimes I'll ask what the budget is, and then I'll try to think of something like within that scope. Sometimes I'll just, you know, creatively think about it. And if I feel like if it's too much, I'll try to feel like how we can, you know, if there's a way to, you know, reduce the budget and, you know, create some kind of a modified version of, you know, what I would have did with more money. But it really depends on the artist. This other artist who recently contacted me, he's very, very, he has a very strong idea of what he wants the video to, how he wants it to go. I inserted a scene in what he wanted and took out a scene, and then obviously it's going to be directed by me and shot, you know, by whatever DP I choose. And so between my directorial, you know, notations and the additional scene, that would be my contribution. But I would say more often, this particular guy, he's an anomaly. Most artists don't know what they want. They're waiting for the director who they hired to come up with something cool. I guess there must have been something about their work that they liked. And so I guess they're hitting them up like, you know, well, what would your ideas be for this? Because, you know, I saw what you did with the last music video, and I thought that was unique, or whatever the case is. And so I would say with artists, 90% of the treatments I come up with myself. And then the other 10% of people kind of have a really good idea of what they want to do.
All right. So you like to know the budget, and you work around the restraints of what you can actually, you know, get with the budget that they're proposing. So you don't like to just like, you don't write something fantastic and great and huge and then realize that it can't be done. You work from the ground up first to realize what you can do first before you start like just trying to produce things that are going to be impossible.
If I can, or if I have an idea, I definitely do. There are definitely times where I've thought about it before knowing the scope of the budget. And then I've had to, you know, reduce or change based on what that number was.
So like, now that we're in this pandemic, has it like really affected your like your work? Like, are you working right now? Like, are you getting hired to shoot? Has it gone down? Have you got nothing, or have you been able to still get hired for stuff, or are you just creating your own stuff right now?
I mean, it's a combination of both. I mean, I'm definitely getting editing jobs, and I'm getting, some on-site jobs here and there. And like I said, I have two music videos coming up, and I have another shoot at the end of August. I would say that if anything, things have been picking up since things have been opening back up. But there was definitely a period in time where there was like almost nothing. Like I was definitely getting some editing work, but it was like almost nothing. Like I would say it's just starting to pick back up. And you gotta understand, for me, I had like a really, really, really good year. I was like making like my weight goals at the gym, and I was, I just came back from vacation in Miami in like late February. And then as soon as that was done, I flew to Atlanta to do a music video and back. And it's like when I came back from Atlanta on March 9th, and they shut down New Jersey by March 16th. And so the trajectory that I had for myself going in from last year with everything that I had planned up, like we were actually supposed to shoot a documentary in Tanzania. I had like 2 or 3 weddings. One was one of my best friends from high school, so that was just gonna be cool to do to me. And all that shit got canceled like in the blink of an eye. And in the blink of an eye,
Wait, can you
oh,
get
sorry.
closer to the
Yeah,
mic? Because it's like,
all of the things that I had aligned and set up for 2020, like
okay,
in the blink of an eye. And after having such a good roll. Like I felt like I was just rolling. It was just like, from one job to the next job to now I'm on vacation. And, I was having a really good time, like working, you know what I mean? And in a blink of an eye, what was supposed to be like one of my most accomplished years, uh,
yeah.
I realized was not going to be so. And
You mean you mean 2020, right? Like
yeah,
it was popping in the beginning, and then as soon as March hit,
it was crazy. In fact, let me back up. I want to say from about September, I was feeling really, really good. I did the music video that you spoke of. I filmed one of the most expensive short. We spent almost $6,000 on Space Between, and that was the longest. It was just the biggest production that I've ever done. I was assistant director on it, amongst other things, but that was basically my main position. And it was something I was very proud of. We had done so much pre-production on the Tanzania documentary that we were supposed to be shooting in May. I had been booked for a couple of weddings. I had, in September, I had just done the Laquan Smith thing with you. I just felt very good about where everything was heading for myself, even up to, like I said, in February and even in March, I was still working, getting out of state work, which felt good, for people to actually be paying for my transportation to come do stuff. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
That was unheard of to me, at one point. So to come back and literally be shuttered into the house, as a freelancer, as a new business owner, is definitely financially devastating. In fact, it can definitely be mentally destabilizing. And I would definitely say on top of that, we know that, that was March, and then in April we're hit with, social justice unrest on top of everything else. So this year has been anything but productive to a certain extent for me during these times. Well, I'm not going to say anything, but I've definitely done some level of productivity. But in terms of the flow, the money making, and the thought process clarity that I had prior to this period in time, it's not even comparable. But I will say, I'm getting back on track. And I'll actually go back and say this. There's a large part of me that feels as though I'm like, man, I kind of wish I had fared a little bit better in terms of like my ability to like commit to certain things like during this period. But the reality is, like, I'm human. Like, I go through shit, and though this COVID pandemic thing was bad for everyone, it was especially bad for people who could not stay on the horse or get back on the horse sooner, or whatever the case is. And my mom always used to tell me that you can't know you're off track if you never had a destination or a route plan to get there. And that she always told me it's okay to be off track, but that you got to have a plan so you know where to get back on at. You know what I'm saying? She said, because if you don't have a plan, then you were never on or off track. And she said that, that's no way to get to, a goal. And that's kind of what I say here. I'm trying to, forgive myself for not being as productive as I possibly could have been during the past 3 or 4 months. While simultaneously doing what I need to do to get back into that place. But going back, it definitely has been harder. Money definitely was hit. But you take this time to reassess what you have to do now, because life is definitely like 90% reaction to things and only about 10% what's actually happening to you. So I feel like if you can find a good way to react to what is happening to you in your career and in life, I guess, you'll fare a lot better in the game. But it's all about getting back on the horse, man. Just having a plan, having a route, a destination, and, just forgiving yourself if you get back on track and getting back to that original plan.
Yeah, I definitely know how that is, because like I was supposed to shoot something with you. You were going to help me produce it. And then like at first I was like pushing it because we were going to shoot, I believe it was like November. And then everybody was going on vacation for like Thanksgiving and Christmas. And then we pushed it to January. And then some people were still like traveling. And the next thing we know, we get hit with like this pandemic, and then everybody's freaking out about being around people and stuff like that. So we never got to like actually start the production on this film. And I'm still gonna shoot it. I still want to do it. It's a great little short film that I wrote, and I hope you're still down to help me produce it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So you have anything like that you're working on that you're trying to get off the ground?
Yeah, so I'm doing a few things. I'm launching a print shop, both online and physically. When I say physically, I'm probably not going to have like a brick and mortar store, but I do plan to find ways to make my prints available physically, down to actually selling right next to the other street artists that are selling their artwork and stuff like that. I plan to be right in the mix with them, because I'm also looking at
When you say print, like you mean like photos?
Canvas prints, like stuff that work that I've already done and work that I am going to do.
Okay.
Offer as prints, because I find a lot of my work fashionable, because it is fashion. And when I go to people's houses who are into fashion, and I look at some of the prints that they put on their wall, and I guess things that people that find themselves artsy or, good at interior design would put up, I feel like a lot of my stuff falls into that category. And I'm like, why not? And people have come to my house and asked me about stuff that I have on my walls, and all of the stuff on my walls belongs to me. So I said, why not branch out? Basically, I'm trying to take one thing or one skill set that I do and diversify the way that I can make income from, so I've already made money off the shoot. Okay. So how can I continue to make money off this shoot or whatever the case is, you know? Or if
Merchandising.
I did make money off the shoot and I did it just so I could get other shoots, is there a way to now monetize this? So that's one thing that I'm doing, opening up a print shop. I have a few spec product commercials coming out. As far as passion projects are concerned, I am in the process. I have a friend of mine. I have two friends, actually. Well, actually, no. I have a friend of mine, and then I have the other people would, I guess, be family members of mine. But I kind of wanted to write a story about my parents' relationship as well as the relationship of somebody else. And this all takes place kind of in the I'd say in the early 80s to mid 80s. Well, I was born in 87. But because I don't necessarily want to work on a period piece per se, I was going to kind of modernize it if possible. But basically, I was going to kind of mix the stories because they're similar. My sisters, mine, and my friends. And so that nobody's offended, actually, I thought it would be better to mix them since they're so similar and the pieces won't really make sense to any one person for it to be them. They'll be like, wait, is this me? And they're like, no, it's not me. But,
Is this going to be this is like a film, like a short?
I feel like it could be a series, but it could definitely be a short film. So I'm trying to figure out if I would do kind of what we did with Space Between. With Space Between, we took the 7-part episodes and we rewrote them into a 20-minute short film to give people the basic grasp of everything, kind of. So it was almost like a pilot episode, but it was like a pilot episode from beginning to end of kind of like highlights, if you will, to like explain the series because we're pitching it to be properly produced.
Okay.
It'll either be something like that, or I'll do the first episode, or I'll try to make it. But it's not a movie that I think could be any less than like 40 minutes, like, and make sense. But yeah, my dad was a piece of work. And I think some of his behavior will be very, interesting to people. Just interesting to watch. Like if you watched some of the way that I imagine it shot looks like if Beale Street could talk.
Okay.
I don't know if you saw that, but
I haven't watched it, but I watched the trailers and I kind of know a little bit about the story.
Gotcha. So in some of the ways that was shot, I really liked it, and the time period that it was in, it was like actually really, really cool. And even though this wouldn't play out anywhere near like that, and I did want to touch on a couple different aspects, even outside of just their life within themselves, like even with how society might have been viewing immigrants at the time, because the reason why the story is definitely not going to seem like me is because I am going to be using the immigrant factor from one of my friend's stories, because one of the way his dad got his mom here was very unconventional. I'll say that. And so that would be one way people wouldn't think that it was actually me, but a large, other parts of the story are going to be his. But yeah, I'm just taking a bunch of similar family drama with dads that I know are pretty much doing the same thing to women, and I'm putting together what's going to be a very dramatic and surprising show, I feel like, that people would actually fuck with. So that's something that I'm working on. And then lastly, I am doing my first coffee table book, and so I'm going to be working with one particular person because I believe they can sell the book. They have the following to do so, I feel like. And I want to make a video to, like, basically at each setup for the particular sets or scenes for the photography that make up the coffee table book, I actually want to do a film piece there as well. So I have a video that pretty much advertises the sale of the coffee table book, and that's something that I want to actually start. I actually already have each and every one of the plans for the scene storyboarded. Just got to get kind of like a crew down and actually get that done because it's something I need to do in the summertime. So I really actually have to get it done by like September for it to make sense. So beaches are still open. But yeah, man, that's about it. I'm writing a short film, planning a coffee table book, and opening up a print shop. So I can try to make some money through things that I can sell, and through things that I can work with remotely should we need to shut down again. So.
And that definitely gotta be able to do stuff remotely because like a lot of things, like usually around this time we would get a lot of jobs like weddings and parties and stuff like that, just side gigs that they pay the bills, they help. But right now there's no parties. The people are still partying, but nobody's like really doing huge weddings and stuff like that or hiring people to shoot them.
In Fashion Week, by now I would have gotten something for Fashion Week by now. So
Fashion Week is starting.
September is first week of September. Usually Fashion Week starts like September 6th and goes to like the 14th or something or whatever, 6th to 13th. So
okay.
It's usually Sunday to Sunday, whatever the first or second Sunday is.
Is that when we did it last year?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, it makes sense now. Yeah, I'm remembering now. So it's been a year since we worked together.
Yep.
I think that's it. Like this was great. Where can people find your work? Like what's your social media?
Find me at Kal Trevor. So at symbol KalTrevor. And my work is available at kaltrevor.com. And it's also Kal Trevor on YouTube, which I need to update. So don't look at that yet. But yeah.
All right. Sounds awesome. Appreciate it, man.
All right, cool.
All right, excellent.
All right,
Thanks for this, man. You have a good day. Can't wait to like link up and like smoke up.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, bro, it doesn't even have to be like a big thing. Like, I drive now, and I also have a decent place. It's not the worst in the world, but yeah, let me know, bro. I'll leave that weed.
Definitely. All right, man.
Are you a follower or a visionary? Can you handle the load that you were meant to carry? Cause we're on a mission. Listen, it's beyond description. We don't want to fit in if we're living in a contradiction. We need a brand of passion that you can't imagine. Don't hesitate. Rub the lamp a lad.